busting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You're tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on CNBC News, NBC News, and NBC Sports radio station KCAA, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, Podchaser, JioSaavn, Rumble, Tiki Live, Spreaker, and more. I am Dr. Marissa, your hashtag positively opinionated host of this show that is in its 9.5 year, 368, I believe, consecutive weeks, and still going strong thanks to you and to all my support at KCAA, this wonderful NBC News channel. I don't, listening to Casey Kasem do his top 40, he always thanks the people who support. So I should get into that habit, but I'm not going to shit on myself, but I will take that time right now. Thanks to Sam, my sound engineer who's Polly, my sound engineer who's working today. Sam got an extra there. Sam, when Polly's not there, Mark Westwood, my station manager, Fred Lundgren, my station owner, and all the guys behind the scenes, Joe, Miguel, Mike, and anybody else. Did I forget anybody, Sam or Polly? Boy, I'm going to blame anything that I say in air today to jet lag because I'm back and I'm so grateful that I was able to come to you almost every day from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And, a lot of you know my mom was there in the hospital and I got to go and help her get out of the hospital. Actually, she made a miraculous recovery. And now I'm going to do the rest of those gratitudes during my Take a Bite of My Gratitude Sandwich breakfast with you. But I just wanted to start off by saying it's so good to be back in Southern California. And I'm glad that you came with me everywhere I go. So I am delighted today to be bringing on a couple of special guests who are going to help me talk about migraines, and not just migraines, and the difference between migraines and headaches, and how many of you out there are suffering from those, or how many of you have to be with someone who suffers from those is the other thing we're going to talk about, the organizational and relational impact of living and having a relationship with someone who's in pain regularly. So that's our topic today. So if you have any opinions on that, everybody has a right to my opinion since it is my show. But I don't focus on the problem, but on solutions. So I'm bringing you some solutions, both individually and organizationally. Some of you know my doctorate is in organizational psychology. So we'll also be looking at the impact of migraines on the workplace. And we have Jennifer Tardy for that help. She's an organizational consultant, and I'll give you a little more background on her when we finish our breakfast. So you know the deal. First thing in the morning, I'm training you and working that muscle of gratitude first thing in the morning so that you can start your day in the most positive way. So 8 specific things that I am grateful for this morning. One is a relatively smooth a return on the plane from Toronto with some wonderful people. Actually, go to my social, you'll see me back in the cockpit. Some of you may think, how does she get into the cockpit so often? To be honest with you, sometimes it's because I'm recognized and sometimes it's because I just ask. And I am invited to sit in the co-pilot or pilot seat, and yesterday was no exception. Wonderful people at American Airlines, especially Cindy and Cynthia, who greeted me with so much care yesterday on the flight back. So I'm grateful for that flight. I'm grateful that I saved $40 because the COVID requirements changed. I didn't have to get a official test on the way back. I booked an appointment, not realizing that the laws had changed. And thanks to the pharmacist at the Shoppers Drug Mart there, who told me I didn't have to spend the money. I'm grateful that I did not get too delayed by my luggage. I always actually have to go through what I call my TSA massage because I had 2 hips replaced. Bionic woman, I am under the x-ray. So they did stop me and give me the pat down, and I got a nice massage. And the downside is I got my shampoo bottles that were not the size thrown out. And that was not fun. And I was like super nice to her. Sometimes it just doesn't matter how nice you are. Rules are rules. So that was the bummer. But I'm grateful, number 4, that I have extra shampoo and conditioner at home and that I have enough always. No matter what it is, I am grateful to be one of the top 8% in the world who basically can buy those things that they need. And that makes me feel grateful and compassion and help wherever I can for those who are not in that boat. Number 5, I'm grateful that I have this amazing view of the ocean to come back to. I'm grateful that I live in Southern California. I'm grateful that I was able to help my mom do a lot of tours and run around looking for the next step in her care as she aging. I have to say, aging is not one of my favorite things, and just watching the body deteriorate. And I know we've been doing a couple of shows on elder care and all of that. And it is, I was teasing Polly about, he's young and I'm ageless, but I think we really do take our bodies for granted when we're younger. And so the more you can appreciate it when you're younger and take care of it, the more you're going to have a more graceful aging process in the body. I believe that's my opinion. So I'm definitely grateful for what my body can do now. And finally, I am grateful to be, I get to go play Mahjong today. I'm treating myself to a game of Mahjong. There's a little group that gets together and plays Taiwan style Mahjong, which I found when I set an intention a few years ago to have more fun in my life and balance out the recovering workaholic that I am. So I'm grateful for that. So that's my 8 gratitudes. That's the top of the bun. The bottom of the bun is 8 appreciations for my qualities. And I hope that you are understanding how important self-care and self-love is, especially PPP, post-pandemic PPSD, stress disorder or dilemma, not a disorder, but a dilemma that a lot of people are feeling still, even though we're coming out of the pandemic, they still feel like they're in the pandemic. And a lot of it has to do with, there's so many reasons, but one, the isolation also is, I don't know about you, but sometimes I think, you know what? There was a plus side to just not having to show up for people, places, and things. And there's a safety of staying back and by yourself. But then the downside of that is if you don't have a strong self-approval muscle, then you're feeling not good about yourself. So we do the bottom of the bun to help strengthen your muscle, my muscle, on saying, you know what? I am 88% fabulous. most of the time. I am 12% not so fabulous, but most of the time I'm okay. It's kind of like the I'm okay, you're okay, I'm okay, you're still okay. Those of you who remember that book. It is so important for you to be able to say, good job, or you're so cute is most of the time, so that you are not walking around with antenna looking for love in all the wrong places. So, what do you appreciate about yourself? 8 specific things. I appreciate that I have no fear, and that um, I will do things that are a little bit off the wall sometimes, and they are almost always a blessing. So I use the example of just asking if I can sit in the cockpit, and those have been wonderful experiences. I don't worry, I'm not actually flying. I am. I appreciate my ability to use honey instead of vinegar in relating to people. Some people have called me charming, so I'll own that. Number 3, I appreciate that I am optimistic. And people ask me all the time, why are you so positive? And frankly, the number one reason is because it feels better. So if you call yourself a worrier or a worrywart and a pessimist, my only question to you is, does that make you feel good? And if it does, go for it. I don't know many people who are pessimists who actually at baseline feel good. And so I'm encouraging anyone who's not feeling good to just do a little experiment all day today. Look for the good in everyone and everything. So as soon as you're tempted to say, I don't like that, I would challenge you to say, what do I like about that? Is there anything outside of you right now that you're looking at that you like, especially if you're known as a complainer? If people have said, I appreciate that I am not a natural complainer. That is not a genetic thing. If you have issues, and if people have told you complain a lot, if it's just one person and they have a thing against you, you might not be a complainer. But if you have 3 people who have said to you at different occasions that you complain a lot, you might want to join my 21-day fast from complaining with Dr. Marissa. That's a good life habit exercise. If you're interested in that, here's the commercial. If you invest $21 at my nonprofit and you donate that, if you are complaint free for 21 consecutive days, I will double your money. And there's actually been people who have done that. And so Eva Glenn Atkinson from Kentucky, Daya Jordan from Long Beach, Janina Iravata from Japan, and Uwe Freyer from Los Angeles have all been able to not complain for 21 consecutive days. So they got gifts. At that time, I wasn't offering money back, but it is a money back guarantee that if you can do it, I will reward you with double your money back. So that's something that if you're not feeling good and you don't want to go into coaching or therapy and you can do it yourself, start with the 21 days of not complaining. And I promise you that will start making your days more enjoyable for yourself, and certainly for people around you if you're not complaining. All right, that is 5 appreciation. 6, I see the eyeballs rolling in. Welcome to the show. If you have any things that you appreciate about yourself, put them in the chat. We're talking about migraines today and the impact on yourself and others when that is in play. Also, I appreciate that I am musical and that I love to sing and play the piano. And I appreciate that I also write songs. And finally, I appreciate that I am helpful most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. And there you go. That's Breakfast with Dr. Marissa, the taking a bite of my gratitude sandwich. And I will give myself some applause this morning because it's always fun doing it by myself. I'm spoiled now that I get to do gratitude sandwiches with my Thursday regular co-host, Sam Works, and Straight Talk with Sam and Dr. Marissa. That's tomorrow. And then Friday, Cynthia Kahi, Fired Up Fridays. Those are my breakfast partners. Today, you were my breakfast partner. So I'm glad that you were able to share breakfast with me. And now I'm going to give you an interview that I did. We did it while I was in Toronto, while they were on tour at different stations, and I got to play it. I get to play it today. So I am going to take a quick break so I can pull up their bios and then come back to talk about migraines. Here on Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind. Does the news scare you in the morning? I actually take my phone and plug it in outside of my bed because I know that when I pick it up first thing in the morning, that more often than not, what I'm swiping is not good news. Some of us have forgotten that we can actually use the most powerful tool we have called choice to choose whether to listen to the news or not, or where we get our news. So that's why I'm so delighted to invite you to my show, 8 a.m. every weekday morning, called Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show that focuses on hope and happiness and solutions to problems instead of just ranting and raving about what's wrong with the world and what's wrong with people. Instead, I want you to find out what is good about you, good about the world, and good about our ability to be humankind. So please join me at 8 a.m. every weekday morning for Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show on KCAA, the station that leaves no listeners behind.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome back. You're tuned in to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, NBC News Radio Channel, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and my YouTube channel, where it is a free subscribe. And I see the eyeballs rolling in. I am grateful that I have the ability now to stream not only on YouTube, but my Facebook channel and new entrance to LinkedIn. I'm grateful that they finally approved me on that one. And so today especially is a good day to stream in on LinkedIn because there's a lot of business people there. We're talking about not just migraines, headaches, the difference between migraines and headaches, but the impact of migraines on the workplace. And then after my very special interview with my experts, we're going to continue to talk about the impact of some human tendencies at work in my capacity as an organizational psychologist. That is my education, my formal education, and one of my real jobs in business. So I am going to share with you in this interview a recent Harris Poll survey, Working Through Migraine, where they interviewed 1,000 people, found that 1 in 3 people say their performance at work is impacted by migraine more frequently than in pre-pandemic years. The two experts I have, Jennifer Tardy is a professional career coach, and she's joined by Dr. Merle Diamond, an internal medicine and headache expert. They're going to discuss the survey findings and provide tips as to how to make workplaces more migraine friendly and how to talk with your boss about migraines. Dr. Diamond will share information about an FDA-approved medication available for the preventative treatment of episodic migraine in adults. So, welcome to my studio, Jennifer and Dr. Merle.
Good day. This is Dr. Marissa. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show. And I'm so delighted to have two very special guests. You know that I like to balance out bad news with good news and solution. And today's solution is on migraines. And I know that's not something that you are unfamiliar with. If you are a migraine sufferer, then you're going to have to listen up right now. It is the second leading cause of disability in the world. I'm here today with Dr. Merle Diamond, President and Medical Director of the Diamond Headache Clinics, and Jen Tardy, Inclusive Recruiting Expert and Career Coach, to discuss the impact of migraine in the workplace and ways to make workplaces more migraine friendly. Please welcome to my studio both Dr. Diamond and Jen Tardy.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So let's start with the basics. What is a migraine headache and what makes it different than a normal headache?
Well, I'm just going to say headaches aren't normal. However, migraine is particularly disabling. It is a complex neurologic disease that impacts about 40 million Americans and preferentially impacts on women. It is a throbbing, pulsatile pain associated with nausea, sometimes vomiting, and light and noise sensitivity. And about 50% of the time, patients need some bed rest, and about 35% of the time, they have some disability associated with their attacks, and the average person gets 3 to 4 migraines per month.
Wow. What are some of the symptoms and how can people tell if it's a migraine or a headache?
Well, that's really, really important. And migraine is misunderstood. And there's a lot of stigma attached to it. And so Jen and I have partnered with ADVI to put together some information for how migraineurs can navigate the workplace and the impact of migraine at work.
Great. Are there preventative treatment options for a migraine headache?
Yes, absolutely. There are preventive therapies. In fact, Qulipta is a once-a-day pill for adult patients with migraine that's episodic, which means less than 15 attacks per month. It can cause some constipation, sometimes some nausea, and sometimes some fatigue, but we know that it can also reduce the frequency of migraine attacks by 50% in a good percentage of patients, as well as decreasing disability. So having the right tools in your toolbox is really, really important.
Great. Now I'm going to have a couple questions for Jen Tardy. Migraine affects many people and has a significant impact in the workplace on employees. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. One of the messages that we're working hard to get out is that, yes, migraine impacts individuals and it also impacts businesses, but it does not have to be this way. And so AbbVie sponsored a survey of 1,000 individuals in the US, ages 18 plus, who are experiencing migraines, episodic migraines, and just its impact on the workplace. And some of the key findings that we came across were things like 74% of those who responded said that it is difficult to manage their migraines in the workplace, or 78% that said that they experience presenteeism, which is, being in the workplace, experiencing a migraine, and then seeing the decrease in productivity. Or even the 66% who have mentioned that it just feels like there's this stigma attached to when they need to request time off or time away so that they can manage their migraine. And so we just want to make sure that people understand that you're not alone, and that there are things that you can do within your workplace to create a more migraine-friendly work environment.
Great. I have never heard presenteeism. I love that. You're there physically, but you're checked out mentally. And I think it's great because I know that a lot of people have this perception that a migraine is, oh yeah, really, you're really not, just buck it up. So thank you for that. Now, what advice do you have to make workplaces more migraine friendly and about how to talk with your boss about your migraine?
The best thing that you can do is to speak more openly about it. And even if it starts with a courageous conversation with your manager. And within that courageous conversation, speaking to what would benefit you so that there isn't necessarily a significant loss in productivity when you're experiencing a migraine. And some of the benefits or the accommodations that came out of the survey results included a designated quiet area, or softer lighting, or even paid sick leave, or even requesting time off. But that's just what the employee can do. But the more that managers or employers hear this message and they can understand just how prevalent this is in the workspace, the more they can proactively have conversations with their entire team about what they are prepared to do to support their employees when they're experiencing migraines in the workplace. All of that can create a migraine-friendly workplace.
Great. Were there any other key findings in that poll that you wanted to share that maybe I haven't asked about?
One that really stood out was, well, two of them in particular. So one was around how 30% of respondents mentioned that their workplace has no accommodations that they're speaking to. And so that was significant, which is why I recommended you can initiate conversations as well. And then when we think about the impact of this, how it impacts the businesses, this is a $19.3 billion challenge. And 81% is attributed to the indirect cost of absenteeism, of people having to miss work overall. So there are huge benefits. It's mutually beneficial for both employers and employees to really lean in to this challenge in the workplace together.
Sounds great. Dr. Diamond, any other points that I haven't asked about that you wanted to make? And then please do, how can people follow up on this if they're intrigued by any of the suggestions? How do they get more information?
That's great. And I think it's so important for patients to have a healthcare provider to communicate with about their migraines so that they can get an effective treatment. And you can learn more by going to qulipta.com. That's QULIPTA, or 1-855-QLIPTA. And thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. I've learned so much. I did not realize it's the second leading cause of disability. Like that is, I went from normal understanding of migraine as a headache on steroids to realizing the impact of this, and certainly the financial impact on both the individual and the workplace. Thank you so much for your expertise and coming on and sharing that with me and my listeners. I wish you the very best as you continue to help people who are suffering from migraines. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, Polly, where's the applause? I forgot to warn you. There we go. All right, that was a great interview. I learned so much. Presenteeism, I love it, as well as the second leading cause of disability in the workplace is migraines. Wow. So now we get to talk about the impact of not just migraines, but I wanted to use my organizational psychologist hat and just talk about humans at work. And that basically is the field that I went to school. What my doctorate is in organizational psychology. People go, what is that? It's simply the cross between business and psychology. So it helps understand the human dynamics that happen at work. So power, politics, miscommunication, conflict, things that I'm sure never happen in your workplace. Sarcasm is another service that I offer, but it is definitely something that has grown in understanding throughout the years. If I go back in a history lesson about, the first, well, if you go to organizations, even back as cavemen, cave women, there's an organized way of, the hunter gatherer or a family unit, and who works and produces food or whatever, roof or the, some kind of stable structure for a family to operate in. So there's always been humans at work. I use that going back to history. When businesses began to use things called human resources. So someone has an idea on how to produce something, a product or a service, and they employ people. That is the roots of that is the mechanistic model of work. And in those days, we also know it as Theory X. So Theory X believes that if you are, let's say, a Rockefeller or someone that the Anheuser-Busch's or the blue blood of America who said, I'm going to build a company, or Steve Jobs, all of these people who started companies, they have an idea, they have a product or service they want to bring to consumers, they charge for it, they make money from it, they go public with stocks, and they employ human resources. So if you had never really looked at that word before, there's another way to see your job at work. So you are a resource of a humankind. You're not a IT resource, or you're not a intellectual property resource. You're not a legal resource. Legal resources do use humans, they use lawyers, but you are a human resource working in an organization to the end of making money or value in stocks, et cetera, et cetera. And in the old days, Theory X would say, the way to harness human resources, the way to get the most out of your human resource is, according to Theory X, make sure your instructions are clear. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. It's supposed to work like a well-oiled machine. Tell people what to do as clearly as possible. And if they don't do the job, they're out. So here's the door, that expression. So humans were just seen as cogs in a wheel, right? You have your specific job, the assembly line, you do this, you do the hammering, you do the gluing, you do the whatever, and everybody has this specific job that they are responsible for. And if they don't do their job, they're fired. And if you don't do your job well, there's something wrong with you because you are a machine, basically. That was Theory X. And we found out through, I'm going to be wrong with the dates, but decades of work. My field started in the 60s, where there's a famous experiment called the Hawthorne effect to realize that, telling people what to do and making their jobs so small as a cog in a wheel was not the best way for productivity. In fact, there were, let me go back though to a great example. My father was a chemical engineer. He's in heaven now, but he was the leading microwave technologist, and he worked on building machines and automating things, specifically in the microwave world, but he also consulted. So he was consulting for Ford, and I shouldn't have said that name. He was consulting for a very large, actually, to be fair, he consulted for General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, a number of car manufacturing companies. And he was at one of the plants, I won't say which one, and he was observing the assembly line, and he saw a man doing this. So he has a hose with glue, and he was doing this, and he kept doing this, right? The car would go, and he basically was putting the glue that would put the rubber seal, that goes between your door and the frame of the car. So he was doing this with a rubber hose, going like this. And my dad looked for a bit, and he finally said to the man, there's no glue coming out of your hose. So he's doing this, but the job or the reason why he was supposed to do that is put the glue out so that it would be adhesive for that piece of rubber. And the man turned to him and said, it's not my job to put glue in the tube. It's my job to do this. Okay. So I tell you that story because it is a great example of what happens when you treat people like a cog in a wheel in an organization. So if you're listening, especially on LinkedIn right now, and you're a boss or a leader in an organization that grew up with your boss taught you how to be a boss by telling you that, people are need to be told what to do. People are just, part of that process where if they have a clear picture of what they're supposed to do, then they should do it. It's not rocket science. Why is it so hard to motivate people? They have a job. They know what it is. They're getting paid. What is the big deal? Why are people not doing their jobs? If you just would listen to the instructions, it would be okay. And my wonderful role as a corporate psychologist is to go in and work with leaders to help them understand that the way that they see the people that work for them is largely affecting the way that they are absent in the head or present in the head, or that present absenteeism versus presenteeism. Because how you see your human resources and how you respect your human resources and how you treat them will impact their ability to do their job in a much stronger way than even giving them a raise. Now, that's a big study that was done years ago where they asked executives, do they remember the last time they got a raise more, or do they remember the last time they were given a praise or acknowledgement for something that they had done well at work? And it was, I think, 73%, although 42.7% of statistics are made up on the spot. 73% said that it was actually, they remembered that compliment or that acknowledgement or that appreciation more so than the exact amount of that raise. So here lies, and going back to that experiment, it was actually a time and motion study by industrial engineers, and that's a cousin to organizational development, me and our expertise. Industrial engineers or industrial psychologists they look at how does lighting in a factory affect productivity? How does sound in a factory impact productivity? And the Hawthorne study actually found that it wasn't an increase in light that made your workers more productive or a decrease in light. It was the fact that you were just studying them and showing interest in making their workplace better that actually improved productivity. And that was a landmark experiment, and the results that showed that the way we treat or the way we see human resources is the number one influencer on how people are productive. And here I'm going to stretch a little bit. We talk about productivity a lot, and we don't talk about creativity as much in the workplace. And I would say, it's my opinion, that when you only see productivity as, how many widgets you make, you miss out on, that 80% of the brain you don't use. 80% of the value of having humankind or human beings in the workplace is a thing called creativity. There is a lot of creativity that goes into the wayside. It gets thrown out with baby with the bathwater, because we only see people, human resources, as someone who does something specific in a role for you. And I don't know about you, I know a lot of people who go to work, their first 2 weeks are great honeymoon phase, and then they are told more than once, that's a good idea, but that's not your job here. We've tried that already. I need you to just stick to what your specific role and responsibilities are in this workplace. And that is one of the the crying shame of organizations, that you cannot benefit from the 80% of the reason why you have humans at work is because we have ingenious brains. These are the brains. Every time I go travel, I just marvel at the ability that humans had to create flight. How did we get to a place where we discovered how to fly like birds? I think that's just so amazing. And look at all the things that we have discovered. Human beings discovered. Look at just in our lifetime. I'm ageless, but just look at the difference between the mainframe computers and now the power of this thing in our hands, that is the computer. So human inspired creative thought is the least understood and harnessed part of our organizational workplace. That is my belief. And it starts with, how do you see your people? And I'm going to get to the migraines in a second. I'm making this full loop here, because when you don't acknowledge the humanness of your resource, then you are going to have what I call the worst plight of, people say, well, what's the worst kind of employer, worst kind of workplace that you've ever been to? And it's not the people who have large turnover necessarily. It is the places where you have apathy. You have people that fill your head count, but they're not there. They are not present. They are not hooked into your vision and values of your workplace. They don't care. They are like the guy putting the glue it's not their job. It's not my job. It's someone's, the buck stops right over there. Or this is a salute of apathy. It's not my problem. So this is free. This is normally hundreds of dollars of consulting right here. If you're a business owner, my best advice to you is, if you're wondering and you're frustrated why you can't find good people, then my first piece of advice to you is, look at this. How do you see your people in the workplace? Do you see them as, you need, if I could just choose my team, I'd have a great team. I wouldn't have people that have migraines. I wouldn't have people that go on maternity leave. I wouldn't have someone who, doesn't, who wants to leave at 5 o'clock because they have balance in their lives, and they have a satisfying home life. I work with leaders all the time who say, this is the workplace. This is the professional life. Leave your personal life at home. I don't want to know what's going on in your home life. Tough beans, go get healthcare or childcare. Tough beans, hire someone to take care of your parents. And that rigidity that still exists in a lot of workplaces, where that's why we have those trainings called How to Deal with a Difficult Boss. If you're a boss, if you're listening to this still saying, I wish I could choose my teams, there's a high likelihood that you still have some antiquated theory X thinking going on, that when you hire someone, that the money should make all the difference in the world. If I pay you well, you should be able to do your job and I shouldn't have to tell you twice. Well, the reality is you're only getting from your employees just 20% of what they can actually do. And the best workplaces that I have worked with have not a theory why. So let me balance it out. Theory why was what happened when the pendulum swung from, mechanistic to full-on employee participation. And I was part of that. And I can tell you that theory why, where you give all your employees the ability to make all the decisions and to empower them to do all the things, and everything is by consensus and everybody has to agree to, that is complete chaos. Well, I was part of that effort to go from, strict, tell you what to do, to complete, everybody has the opportunity to make the suggestion, to be part of the decision-making process. And that is complete chaos, because you cannot get an organization of 100 people or 100% to think the same way, to make the same decision. And if you try to put 8 people in a room to come to a consensus and everybody gets what they want, it ain't gonna work. It's really one of the most frustrating, and it leads to apathy again, because, oh my God, here we go again. We're not gonna all agree. So theory Y doesn't work. That is, so we're going from top down, 100% top down, theory X, to bottom up, completely chaos, theory Y. So mine is theory balanced. It's close to theory Z. That's another lesson that we're not going to talk about. But balance is when there is time, let's do consensus. But if there's no time, then we're going to have to put a parameter on it. And usually my balance process is, we have so many minutes for brainstorming, we have so many minutes for evaluating, and then we have so many minutes to come to an 80% perfect solution. We know the upside, we know the downside, and we have what I call the alignment room, where we don't walk out of the room without a specific decision that everybody, even if they don't like it, is 100% or at least 88% they're going to do the work towards. So that is free advice for leaders who are wondering why they can't get people to buy into what their vision is, or their values, or their strategic plan. Because if you can't treat people and understand that they are your greatest resource, you hear that all the time. Oh, you're my greatest resource, humans. The reality is, most businesses, human resources, the whole department, or much of the department of human resources, are people who really don't like humans. They've been created to apply rules, to avoid lawsuits, to set down these rules so that you don't get in trouble. And it really is not at all what the original purpose of human resource departments are for. Human resources are your most valuable resources because of the ability for creative thinking, inspired thinking, collaborative thinking, and thinking outside of the box, and being, very responsive. There are companies who did really well during the pandemic. Do you know why? Because they had a workforce that was accustomed to thinking on their feet, was accustomed to having processes where, okay, let's problem solve around this. Let's not wait for some person in the top penthouse to come down with an edict. There was an immediate response to, okay, we're getting shut down. What do we do? How do we, capitalize on what's happening right now? Same with, the whole, after George Floyd, the companies that said, okay, we see, we hear it, we understand it is not, valuing diversity is not happening. All of our efforts to value diversity in the 90s and the 2000s, it may have driven prejudice and discrimination underground. What do we do now to set in place programs and processes where we value diversity? I've been called from a number of those companies to come back and revisit and look at what went wrong and how do we improve our diversity and inclusion processes in the workplace. So I say this because migraines, you can see it as a business leader as saying, oh my God, here we go again, more touchy-feely stuff where we have to make concessions. Again, I'm putting the moose on the table. I don't think this, but I hear it. So the reality is there are leaders in business who are very still Theory X rooted. And so anything like, oh, it's another disability in the workplace. Oh, great. Let's make sure we don't hire. Make sure you have a question in the assessment. Do you suffer from migraines so that you don't have someone on your team who's always out on migraines? It's a horrible way to say that. And the reality is I hear it. And so again, am I saying as a business leader that you have no standards or productivity standards or any productivity goals in place? Absolutely. But I would ask you to open and expand your understanding of human resources, that we're talking about people, and people have brilliant ideas and brilliant inspiration and brilliant creativity and brilliant commitment and brilliant loyalty and respect, and they want to do a good job. Fundamentally, everybody wants to make a difference. Everybody wants to have a job that makes a difference, that makes them feel important, that makes them feel appreciated, that makes them feel of value, that what they're doing in the workplace matters. That is 100%. The only people where that does not apply is people who have beaten down so bad in their workplace that they just say, just give me the paycheck, just tell me what to do. Don't ask me what I think, because I've learned that when I say what I think, I'm going to get beaten down. So I don't think for you anymore. You get me from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Don't bother me at home. I live for my weekends. I live for my evenings. Screw you. That's under the breath. So that's what we have now. I'm hoping that coming out of this pandemic, especially that it is an employee market now, there is a difficulty in placing people in jobs, and people are not willing now to just settle for anything. If you want to be competitive, it might be time to look at how you are treating your human resources. Because if you want to be an employer of choice, if you want to get the best and the brightest, if you want people, and I believe the best and the brightest is not just that top 20%. I believe there's 80% best and brightest in the workplace. But because you have treated people, oh my goodness, I didn't see the 3 minutes. This is Dr. Marissa on a roll about organizational psychology, migraines, and more. Tune in tomorrow. I hope you remember that it's all about balance. Peace in, peace out, world. Peace through, inner peace. Have the best day ever. We'll see you on Straight Talk with Dr. Marissa and Sam Works tomorrow. Funny.